Let's talk about something most pastors feel but rarely say out loud: the pressure of leading something you were never trained to lead. Here's the deal. You studied theology in Bible school or maybe in seminary. You learned how to exegete scripture. You practiced pastoral care. You trained to shepherd people. But what no one really told you, at least in that educational setting, was that you'd spend your week doing staff meetings and managing volunteers, troubleshooting budgets, reviewing org charts, and creating systems for discipleship and care. You weren't trained for those things, but your church expects you to lead like you were. Welcome to the pressure. I didn't realize this before I became a pastor. Some of you know my background. I got an MBA and worked in the marketplace as a consultant for about a decade before fully transitioning into ministry. And when I first became a pastor, I had to learn what most of you learned before me in Bible school and seminary. But I did have an advantage. I was trained and had experience in organizational leadership. So later, when I did go back to seminary and then got a doctorate in ministry, I realized that all of my classes that I took in that area didn't prepare me to actually lead the church. Preach, yeah, absolutely. Counsel, yeah, a little bit, but not lead and scale, and definitely not systematize and interpret financial data. So back to you. Here's the dangerous part. Because most pastors aren't trained in these spaces, they either ignore it, resist it, or just white knuckle their way through it. But none of those really lead to health, right? They definitely don't lead to growth. So before you tune me out on this topic, let me just be very clear. The church is not a business. I get that, and I agree with that. But it does have a business to run. The church is not a business, but there are business elements to it that need to be run well. So there's a difference, basically, think of it this way, between church and ministry. The church is the body of Christ, right? But ministry is the activity of that body. That activity needs a plan, and that plan needs structure and systems. So this isn't about kind of turning your calling into a corporation, not at all. It's about stewarding your calling with wisdom. So today, here's what I want to do. I want to give you 8 organizational leadership principles that most pastors were never taught, but absolutely need to run an effective and a healthy church. Here's the first 8 of these. Number 1, leadership is relational influence. You cannot forget that. Titles do not create trust. Clarity and execution and culture, that's what creates it. Consistency creates it. So leadership, as John Maxwell has taught us, is about influence, but it's done relationally. So if you want to move something forward in your church, you're going to have to gain trust first. And as you know, trust is really challenging to get and can be lost in one moment. So guard it and protect it and work to gain it relationally. Leadership is a relational influence. Number 2, strategy is really just a fun word for a plan. It's not a buzzword. Now, I say fun word because I'm a strategist and I loved that part of my business education. In fact, when I was an undergrad, I have a marketing undergrad degree. My favorite class was organizational strategy. I still remember my final project. That was the last class I took to graduate. I remember my final project. I remember what I wrote about. So again, I'm a strategist. I love that stuff, but you may not be. So here's what you should do. Ask a couple of questions. Number 1, where are we now? That's what a strategist would do. They would first start by discovering your current reality. Where are we now? Then ask, where are we going? Where do we want to be? That's a mission and vision question. What's the target out there? And then the next question, what is our plan to get from where we are to where we want to go? That's all strategy is. I know we can turn it into something real complicated that creates a 48-page PDF that sits on your laptop, never to be opened or read through again. But that's not how strategy should be. Strategy should just be your plan. What is your plan? To go from where you are to where you want to be, organizationally, or, and this is important, personally. A discipleship pathway is nothing more than a plan. to help somebody from where they currently are get to where maybe God hopes they can go. That's all it is. So strategy is a plan. It's not a buzzword. Okay, number 3, management. Again, not a fun word maybe for you, but management is stewardship. This isn't about micromanaging people, but it is about aligning the vision and the values and your resources. I'll tell you, I think it is malpractice in ministry to not manage it well, because we are called to steward everything God has given to us, everything that you have personally and, kind of organizationally. It's about stewardship. So I don't want you to start micromanaging everybody. I mean, in fact, that's the worst thing you can do. But you do need to align things. You need to think about how to manage this strategy, for instance, that you're going to put in place. How are you going to make sure that it's making progress? How are you going to measure it? That's all about management, and it's a stewardship. Number 4, structure. And this is such a big one. I think pastors miss this all the time. Structure actually sets you free. Structure doesn't burden you, it frees you. Like an organizational chart doesn't limit you. It frees you and the people you lead to lead without confusion. That's what structure does of any kind. Systems and structure are freeing for you. Very quick example. I work with lots of churches. You probably know that, like around the world. And one of the most common things I'm asked to do is help them define a generosity journey to help every person in their church begin to take some steps forward in their financial life in light of what God is doing in the kingdom and through that church. So I call it the funding funnel. I've developed this framework that helps with this. When people first are introduced to it, it can, and I get it, it can feel a little overwhelming because it's a pretty robust structure. It's a framework. However, the churches that can get past that realize how freeing it is. I was just recently working with a church on this. I can tell you, as I'm recording this now, it's June, right? I can tell you what they're going to talk about in the 3rd week of November around finances in their vision moment. Having that kind of plan is freeing. So instead of trying to figure out this week, what are we going to talk about on Sunday? We know. In fact, we know for the next 12 months of Sundays how we're going to attack generosity. That's what structure does. It sets you free to be hyper creative and innovative and actually have some margin to work on it, not just in it. Okay, number 5. In this fun, number 5, okay, halfway through. People are your greatest resource. And those people need to be developed, okay? So having clarity helps them, encouraging them helps them. And sometimes having tough conversations and maybe even tough transitions. People are the point, right? And of course, this would be a lot easier if it worked with the people, but people are the point. And they're the greatest resource God has given us, not just to develop them, but for them to help develop others. That's what discipleship is, right? We're not really finished with disciple making until the disciplee becomes a discipler. And so helping people grow in their faith by giving them clarity, by giving them steps, by encouraging them along the way, and helping them move into places where they can be better used. If you have staff members, this is a big deal. Hiring is an important part of organizational leadership, the business side of this. And if you hire the wrong people, I mean, the minute you realize you made a hiring mistake, you know it, you're in trouble. So sometimes having tough conversations is really critical. And I'll tell you why. The mission is where your loyalty should lie. The mission is what you're loyal to, not to the people serving that mission. Now, that doesn't mean you treat them poorly. You should absolutely treat people with incredible integrity. And if you've hired somebody, even if they now are not the right person, you owe it to them to do everything you can to help them be successful. But the minute you realize that they don't have a real future in your church, in your organization, the most kind thing you can do, and I used to say this as a joke, but it's true, is to help free up their future. Because there's nothing freeing about a future where there is no progress to be made in their career. So helping them transition out and doing it with grace and love and severance and all the support you can give, that's a kindness. And people deserve that. They're your greatest resource. Number 6, budgeting is theology in numbers. That's all budgets are. Show me your budget and I'll show you your values. Budgeting is an incredibly important aspect of organizing this organism. So How are you doing that? How are you thinking about it financially? How are you planning to grow that financial aspect of your church? How are you helping people understand the importance of your budget and where that money goes? Budgeting is just theology and numbers. It's really important. Number 7, 2 more, marketing is really just communication with a mission. You are not selling a product, right? You're not selling Jesus, but you are sharing. I mean, think about it, the most important message in the world. So think about how you're saying it. Say it clearly. Market that message as if it matters, as if it's the most important message on the planet. Now, we could do a whole nother segment on this. I would not encourage you necessarily to do a bunch of digital marketing and things like that, because attracting people to an event is not sticky. Relationships are sticky. So what we used to call kind of guerrilla marketing, but marketing through people, referral marketing is the absolute best way to do it in your local church. Build a culture of, and you know this buzzword, probably invest and invite. Build a culture of marketing through invest and invite, where your people are investing in relationships with people far from God and inviting them to engage in a church that's changing their life. So maybe it can change theirs too when the time is right. Last one, change management. I took lots of courses on this. In fact, my doctorate is in church revitalization, which is basically a study of change and making progress when things are not going well. Okay. Change management. If you're a pastor, it is part of the job, because ministry is change. Help your people, right? Hold tightly to the mission, but really loosely to the method, because strategies and methods are made for moments, and moments always change, which means the way we approach ministry is going to have to evolve. I mean, even personally, change management is your job. I mean, helping people grow in their faith means changing their heart. You're not doing it. I mean, God's doing it, but the process of change is baked in to your job. So change management is just part of the job. You need to own that. You need to understand it. Now, how do you start putting all of this stuff into practice? Well, it could feel overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. I would encourage you to build your church's kind of operational playbook, not a corporate document, but something that's clear and actionable that really becomes a model for how you think about and operate ministry. So just like 4 really quick things. You can assess where things are stuck. You can clarify then your mission and your vision. You can map your ministry strategy and design a discipleship pathway that's clear. And you grow as a leader. You don't need to be a CEO, but you do need to lead, which means continuing to grow. So let me kind of end with this, okay? The pressure to lead organizationally is real, okay? And by the way, you were never meant to carry it alone. You don't have to choose between kind of your clarity and calling. If leading the organization of this organism is weighing you down, you should find a coach or a consultant who can help you in that space. Again, you were probably not trained for all of that. So sure, there's a cost to that too, right? But let me ask you this. What is the cost of not placing any energy or effort there? If you're bumping into a barrier, if you can't break through a lid, what if this is the answer? Until next time.